Hey, what's going on? I'm Matt O'Leary back with another video, and today's topic is going to be the New York Jets and why they should trade for a cornerback. But before we get started, I just wanted to mention that you can follow me on social media at Matt O'Leary NY on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So now that we got that out of the way, we can jump right into it and get started. So, Mike Maccagnan was in charge of free agency and the draft. Now it's Joe Douglas. Things have changed, obviously, a lot in the last few months, but one thing that Mike Maccagnan did not do very well, and there's a lot of things he didn't do well, but one thing in particular that's going to bite them in the butt right now is the cornerback position. Right now, as it stands today, obviously injuries could change everything, which we don't want injuries because that would make things somehow even worse. But as of right now, the Jets' four corners look like it's going to be Tremaine Johnson, number one, who is coming off a terrible year. Then Darryl Roberts as the number two corner, who realistically, he's probably better off as like your fourth corner coming in situations. Again, at corner, he was pretty good. Safety, not great, but I don't know how comfortable you are with him as your number two corner. Poole is your slot corner. He's essentially a younger version of Buster Skrine who hits a little bit harder. Take that for what it is, so he's okay. And then your fourth corner is who exactly? Parry Nickerson? Derek Jones? Somebody else who's in the mix? I don't exactly know who the number four corner is going to be, and they are one injury away from being probably the worst cornerback group in the entire NFL. Now, that could be addressed and changed pretty much right away from Joe Douglas and his old connection. Joe Douglas was with the Philadelphia Eagles the last couple of years. He helped build that Super Bowl roster from 2 years ago. But now he is the Jets general manager. But could he use that Philadelphia Eagles connection to trade for a cornerback? I think so, and let me explain why. The Eagles have a ton of depth at that position. They really do. Now, I know Ronald Darby and Jalen Mills are a little bit banged up right now, but outside of those two guys, even further down on the depth chart, I mean, we saw it last year in the playoffs and down the stretch in that run with the amount of injuries they had to the secondary. That Eagles cornerback group is really, really good, and they could afford to lose one of those guys. The first guy to me that comes to mind is cre'von Leblanc. He's the guy you might remember in the playoffs last year, intercepted Drew Brees early in the game. He filled in and was very, very solid for the Eagles last year. He played 8 games, was traded over from Detroit, and again, he was pretty solid for that team. He had a 63.8 Pro Football Focus grade in the 2018 season, and his cap hit for this year is very low. It's under $1 million, and he's just 25 years old. This guy I would definitely want on my team. He has NFL experience. He's still young at just 25 years old, and he's productive in big spots for the Eagles last year. Now, what would it take for the Jets to acquire a guy like Leblanc? I'd probably say, a fifth rounder? I mean, he hasn't had a ton of NFL reps. He played just 11 games last year, 8 with the Eagles, and was pretty solid, but he is so far down on that depth chart, you can't really justify them saying, okay, I want a third rounder for him or something like that. We know it's not going to take a first or a second, but it's probably going to be a third, fourth, fifth in that range. I would think fifth rounder probably just because where he fits on that depth chart. He's, as it sits right now, they're fifth corner, maybe? Like, I don't know where you could even place him. Obviously, things change if there's injuries, and we saw that last year with the amount of time that he played. But as of right now, he's not really in their plans. He is just a depth piece. And if you can get a draft pick back for something that you're probably not going to even use, I think you do it. And I think Joe Douglas has the right connections in that group to get something like that done. And maybe you don't want to go for a guy like Leblanc, but there is another option that I think, even with the Philadelphia Eagles, that you can go out and acquire. And that would be Rasul Douglas. Again, a little bit more higher profile. He was the third rounder from the 2017 season. Right now, he is playing a little bit more because Darby and Mills is banged up. But once they're back and healthy, and both guys should be ready to go by week 1 of the season, he's going to get pushed right back down the depth chart. And this is a guy who is good and could be a starter, but the Eagles just don't have the space for him right now. He had a 69.6 Pro Football Focus rating last year. He played in all 16 games, but started just 7. And for him, I think it would take a little bit more, maybe a fourth. You could probably even sell me on a third rounder, but I'm going to say a fourth round pick it would probably take to get Douglas. To me, I am giving up a fourth or a fifth round pick in order to acquire somebody to add depth to this position. And no, it's not like the Rashard Robinson trade from a couple of years ago. This one would actually make a little bit more sense if you're giving up a 4th or 5th round pick to one of these guys, because they have shown recently that they are good at the NFL level and with a very good team. Still, the Eagles would have, and this is why they would do this. Even if they lose one of those two guys, Darby, Mills, one of Douglas or LeBlanc, Sidney Jones, and Avonte Maddox. That is still a very, very good cornerback group. Exceptionally good. And they could afford, if Darby comes back slow from his ACL injury, or if Mills is still banged up, they could get by in the first couple of weeks, even without one of those two guys that I mentioned. So to me, between their depth to begin with and the fact that Joe Douglas was just there, it seems like this is a no-brainer for the Jets. They have to do something to address this cornerback group. They cannot go into week 1 with this. Again, as teams, dwindle down their roster and make their cuts, someone's going to be available, maybe someone unexpected. But I think you got to go out and make a trade because you got to get someone who is proven at this level and pretty solid. So that's what I would do. Let me know in the comments if you agree with me. Should the Jets make a trade for a cornerback? Does the Eagles make sense? And do one of these two guys that I mentioned in my video today make sense for the New York Jets? If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. You could also follow me on social media at Matt O'Leary NY. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next time.